Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this symposium on whether the rule of law can survive having no judges. A provocative title and a little misleading. No one is arguing there will be no judges. There will be many people who fulfill that role in the table of organization of our court system. But the concern is, how will the rule of law survive? Can it survive if there's no genuine, committed, sincere judges committed to the legal system? Now, that's a very dramatic claim, isn't it? And of course, it's a response to not just the last couple of weeks since the death of Justice Ginsburg and the apparent oncoming confirmation of her replacement on the Supreme Court of the United States. It's bigger than that and longer than that. There has been a real change in the makeup of the courts, specifically the federal courts of the United States over the last several years. Now, first, this will be a symposium made up of people of a wide spectrum of political views. Now, I, as the host of the symposium, some of you, those of you who know me, know that I'm on the far left of the political spectrum. Again, to repeat a phrase that just cracks students up over and over again, so I'll repeat it. One student once said to me, "You're so far to the left, you make Bernie Sanders look like a Republican." Yay, ha ha ha. But this symposium is not just a bunch of cranky leftists. There's quite a few people from a wide variety of points of view, including people who would self-identify as conservatives. Okay, that's who's going to be on this panel. And what it will not be first, it is not going to be an examination of the fact that because of the hardball tactics of the Republican minority party, which because I mean, this is not a matter of opinion. This is mathematical fact that though they represent a minority of voters, they have a majority of senators because our system isn't a functioning democracy. Anyone who thinks differently is bad at math. So currently 53 senators are Republicans and have been since the midterm elections in Obama's second term, or sometime back there. Now I've forgotten when, but during Obama's presidency, the Senate was taken over by Republicans. They represent a minority of voters, but they have a majority of seats, and the Senate has a lot of say-so over who becomes a federal judge. We all know that. Because of the hardball tactics that refused to confirm well over 100 nominations by President Obama, and then fast-tracked all of President Trump's up to and including this recent Supreme Court nomination. Many people call that a Republican court packing plan. This is not a symposium about that. I just spent 5 minutes telling you about it. It's not about that. Plenty of people are talking about that. This is not about that. This is not a focus on the pipeline that the Republicans have used, the Federalist Society, which is an ideological society funded by hidden dark money that's all about trying to shove people onto the courts, plural. It's not about that. There's plenty of people talking about that. We're not talking about that. It's not even a focus on the judicial philosophy that these conservative judges follow, which is usually called originalism slash textualism, which are not exactly the same thing, but they do share a commonality, which is neither one of them is a legitimate philosophy. What I mean is, it's not just that they're hypocrites, such as the late Justice Scalia claiming to be an originalist or a textualist, and then utterly ignoring the text of the 11th Amendment and the Second Amendment in making the decisions he made. He admittedly ignored the very words of the 11th Amendment to invent this doctrine that even the citizen of, say, Florida cannot sue the state of Florida in federal court unless it comes under the exception to the 11th Amendment we call the 14th Amendment. Kind of complex sounding, but you know, the bottom line is the 11th Amendment doesn't say anything like what the so-called originalists make it to mean, and they admit that. So is it hypocrisy? If that's all it was, we'll just stop being a hypocrite and go back to being an honest originalist. Now, many of us, including me, would argue that originalism isn't just not being followed by these so-called originalists, but that it's a phony philosophy. It never yields any meaningful results. It's a joke. It's a fraud. But this, now that I spent 5 minutes talking about that, this is not about that either. What is this symposium going to be about? And by the way, some of the things I just said, members of this panel will not agree with. Some of them think textualism and originalism will work, though not as done by current judges. We're focusing instead on what happens when the rule of law falls into the hands of people appointed to be judges, when the legal system is in the hands of people appointed to be judges who literally reject the legal system and replace it with pure politics. Hypocrisy, you say? That's me. I'm part of a school, and you know it, the school that says all law is politics. The school that says, and particularly the kind of decisions that we ask the United States Supreme Court to make are political. So how dare I say they're replacing law with politics when I say they're the same thing? And there's a very simple answer to that. There's more than one kind of politics. And that's my point and this introduction. Law is politics, but it's a specific kind. If you want to talk in terms of the games played, the politics done in Congress can at times be sheer numbers, and that's okay. You know, or in a state legislature. If your local state legislature wants to put a road 10 miles to the west and you want it to go 10 miles to the east, it's sheer numbers, getting the most votes. And there's nothing illegitimate about that. But the politics played in a legal system are the politics of explanation. It's possible to be a conservative judge and to be a genuine judge. If you are a conservative judge, I will be very upset at your decisions. And I will be perfectly happy to argue your decisions are wrong. But I will not necessarily want to argue that your decisions are outside the game we call law. They're not necessarily so. That's not necessarily the case. The problem with the judges we're talking about now is they've abandoned the style of politics that we call legal reasoning. Yeah, it's politics, but it's a politics with a special flavor where the judge has to explain their position their decision. Judges have to explain their decisions, tying those decisions into other decisions, showing how this decision fits into a coherent whole with the legal system as a totality. Every judge occasionally ignores one strand of this web. Nobody is a perfect legal reasoner. But when you abandon any attempt to stay on the web, that seamless web we call the law, when you abandon any attempt to explain yourself in the way we expect you to explain yourself, you abandon law and you're dishonest. By dishonest, I mean, if you explain your reasoning and I find your reasoning unattractive because I think you have adopted or understand the law to contain principles that I think are, for instance, morally repugnant, then I can point at what is morally repugnant and we can have a legitimate, honest argument. I can point out why I think you're wrong. And you can point out honestly why you think you're right, even when I think your position is repugnant. But the key is we explain ourselves. That's what I and people like me mean when we say we have a narrative view of the meaning of law and a legal system. It's a story, and the story has to hold together. That's the minimum requirement of a legal system, that it forms a coherent story, that we explain ourselves. And that's what we're going to address in this symposium. Not every one of the speakers will agree or follow my way of explaining this dilemma. That we have judges who no longer care about giving reasons that are coherent and are sincere, that really attempt to make the web complete. We always reweave the web, but it stays one single web. Until we get judges who just say, I'll just do whatever. One day I follow a principle of textualism, the next day I'll admit it, I don't care about it. One day I will give a reason that fits with decision A, and the next day I'll just ignore that to get to a result that fits another form of politics, the politics of ideology and power. There's ideology in the law, but the difference in law's ideology, legal ideology, is it requires explanation. Your story has to fit into the story as a whole. That's the way I put it. Other people will put it differently in the symposium. And other people will give their views on whether our current legal system will survive judges that just jump off the web altogether. They will speak first. I have my own views, and they will come later. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this introduction. It will be posted on YouTube also, as well as within the intranet of this symposium. And others may post their views on their own YouTube channels. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.